Right, okay, let's move on to the next topic. Now, this topic I'll be clipping on YouTube as well, so if you're listening to this on our YouTube channel, then please comment below your opinions on this. It's been big news. I'm so pleased we're recording this today, the day we're recording this on the Thursday, because it was announced that Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen would be leaving the Haas Formula One team. Now, there was a big rumours, almost like, are we surprised that this announcement came? Because there was talk of, Grosjean was going to be leaving, as was Kevin Magnussen, that they've been told. Haas wanted to look at other Ferrari Junior Academy drivers. There was options of what was it, 10 drivers, I think it might have been. Gunter Steiner said that was they were considering for next year's seat. So today it was officially announced that Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen will be removing from the Haas F1 team. And as time of recording, no one has been officially announced. However, there is one driver more than likely going to be there next season. Will, let's discuss that opinion with you then. First of all, your initial reactions to Kevin Magnussen and Romain Grosjean leaving Haas and more than likely Formula One as a whole. Are you surprised, angry with any of that decisions? What's your thoughts?
I mean, look, I think I've been known to not be one of Romain Grosjean's biggest supporters, over the years.
Oh, what gives that?
I don't know. Maybe it's just a video that I did a few weeks. Anyway, Look, the whole point is, as I think, go back a few weeks and we were expecting this. We expected both drivers to be dropped. Then in maybe the last week or so, that started to change a lot. They might actually keep on one driver, and that would most likely be Kevin Magnussen, given that he seems to, I say, the most consistent performer, and they've both been consistently rubbish, but nevertheless, he was probably looking through the stronger driver out of the two. I think K-Mag has beaten Roman every year apart from 2017, from the 4 years that they've been together now. So I think, it was looking like K-Mag might stay, but obviously we had the news that both of them are going. I feel like in Formula One there are several kind of stop gaps that are stopping the new drivers coming in. You've got people like Giovinazzi, you've got people like Raikkonen, and I think the two Haas drivers fall into that category as well. And it was time. I mean, both of them have been in Formula One for a long time. Romain Grosjean first raced in 2009. He's been there a while. Yes, he spent a few years out after he crashed a little bit too much in his first season. But K-Mag as well has been around since the turbo hybrid era began. And again, I think he missed a year in 2015. But, apart from that, his success has been never really there. He's not going to be a driver that, let's be honest, will get into a top car and fight the likes of Verstappen or Hamilton or even people like Bottas and Albon, and then he'd struggle to fight in equally matched machinery. So for me, they've had their time in Formula One. Did they deserve to be in Formula One at the start? Yes. They've got to the point now where there are better drivers coming up that deserve to be in that in those seats. And at the end of the day, Formula One is supposed to be the 20 best drivers on the grid, and I don't feel like those two guys fit into that category anymore. There was times where they did, but now they're past that prime, and they'll probably still find opportunities. I think Grosjean's already been in the Mahindra simulator for Formula E.
Yes.
There's talks of K-Mag trying out IndyCar or going into endurance racing with his dad. So they'll both get options outside of Formula One. But for me, this was a situation that was inevitable eventually. I thought it would happen last year, but we've got it now.
Yeah. If anything, I was adamant that Grosjean was going to be leaving last season more than anyone, just because of his performances. How Drive to Survive kind of highlighted how bad the relationship was behind the scenes as well, between those two as well, especially after the Silverstone performance. When it was announced that both of them could be going, I mean, don't get me wrong, Kevin Magnussen is not the best driver in the world, but certainly I would say he's better than what he's given credit for, absolutely. He got a podium on his very first appearance in Formula One in 2014, and even though that the car wasn't, there in 2014, unfortunately, I thought his performances were still pretty good, and I just thought how he was drafted out for 2015 was a bit unfair on him, despite he was told, you are going to be here for next season, and then all of a sudden Alonso comes along, and everything just changes like in that dynamic. And then, of course, he went to Renault for a year, and then he went to Haas, and he's always had that bad boy enigma around him, hasn't he? Like this old school racer. He doesn't give a damn as what anyone says. He does what he does, and I think that might have put off a lot of maybe the top teams taking a punt on Kevin Magnussen. I think that's where he missed out on, because if you haven't listened to his I was going to say you haven't his Drive to Survive. No, what's it called? Beyond the Grid. it's really interesting as to how how deep he goes into like his personal life and how he expresses about his natural about how he races. It's really interesting. I would recommend go and listen to it. And that's when he says, right, I'm an old school racer. I would love to race back in the '60s and stuff when I don't fear anything, and you shouldn't fear anything at the end of the day. That's what makes true racing. It's just good how we went about it. I just think that a lot of teams were put off by that. But in terms of Romain Grosjean, it was only a matter of time before it was going to be announced that he would be leaving. Don't get me wrong, Grosjean's on his day was a really good driver. He put in some amazing performances, especially in his Lotus years. Yes, I just feel as though at times he did make some silly mistakes, as did many other drivers. I just think he did it more consistently, and I think a lot of people kind of that shone more than anything else. And I think people forget about his good days and remember his bad days, especially Japan 2012, Spa 2012, all those kind of performances, and forget his podium finishes that he did well against Kimi Räikkönen on his return season. He got multiple podiums. Yes, he didn't win a Grand Prix. He should have won a Grand Prix. He should have won in Japan 2013 when he led the majority of the race before Vettel ultimately got the better of him that day. And I think that, unfortunately for Grosjean, it doesn't matter what he did. He could have done 5 amazing seasons off the bounce. He'll just be remembered for being that guy that crashes all the time, a bit like Maldonado was. I mean, I'll never forget the day that they were announced as Lotus drivers in 2014. Just the memes, oh wow, there's just memes everywhere. I got involved. I'm not gonna lie. I got involved. So obviously that leaves up 2 seats at Haas. Ball prediction time. Will, who do you think is getting them? Go on.
Firstly, I said I wouldn't worry about losing Grosjean because we've got a new one. Okay, his name's Nikita Mazepin. He's going to be coming into I've got a video coming out on Mazepin. Funny enough, just before filming this, I've just finished it now, and I've said my piece, but I'll kind of quickly sum up what I think there. Mazepin is utterly hopeless in and out of a race car. What he has is a lot of money and a very rich dad who could buy out that team
Sound familiar?
in the coming years. Yeah, it does. I can't remember.
I don't know.
What was his name? Was it Stroll?
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 Stroll.
Is it Stroll? Yeah, that was it.
Him.
Sorry.
That's him.
Of course. Yeah. It's Mazepin. He's sorry. I get angry talking about him.
Oh no.
Let me quiz you on this one, Jordan.
All right.
How many series do you think that Mazepin has won from all the way from up in karting up to now? How many series do you think he's won?
Oh, I'm gonna go with none.
Yeah, you're spot on. It took him 70, 80 odd races in car racing to win his first race.
Right.
I think everyone was cheering about him getting a podium in his second car racing event.
Okay.
Do you want to know who the only other driver of note was in that series?
No idea.
So, Mahavir Raghunathan.
Oh, the Lord Mahavir.
The legend himself. That just sums it up. They're shouting about, we've got this podium, this guy's something for the future. Somehow, having won one race in his entire career, he was picked up by Force India. And again, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what images Dmitry Mazepin had of Vijay Mallya at that point to allow Mallya to let Mazepin into the team. He had something on him because it was ridiculous. And really, Mazepin as well, he's not, as a personality-wise, he's been, I won't swear, but you can imagine what I want to say here. Let me take you back to, I think it was 2015, 2016. He was in Formula 3, and it was a free practice session, and he's driving along, and apparently Callum Ilott, who we know is another contender for that seat, held him up, and free practice session, it happens. Yeah. Imagine you're in that situation, Jordan. What would you do if a driver held you up just for one lap? What might you do?
I'll be very vocal. I'll put it that way. But you just try and get past him, or you just back off the lap and just try again next time, clear some space.
Yeah, that seems sensible. Nikita Mazepin, he had a different idea. He decided he'd walk up to Callum Ilott after the session, and give him a black eye and a swollen jaw, and absolutely beat the crap out of him. And
right, all right.
Yeah,
Wow.
it took the FIA 9 hours to decide that, maybe we should ban him for a race.
9 hours?
9 hours. And in fact, there was outcry about this at the time. I know your original question was about the drivers, but I've gone on a bit of a tangent here.
That's a podcast for you. Just go with the flow. Go with the flow.
That's the thing. It's just the fact that this guy's still in line for a Formula One seat is ridiculous. You know, he's kind of like that Dan Tickton that slid under the radar. A lot of people don't know that. In fact, I only found out about that incident in my research for this video that's coming out on Saturday. And the fact that has happened, plus other incidents, like he had in Formula 2 at Sochi last year, he caused that massive accident at turn 3 in the sprint race, which hospitalised himself and Matsushita. Was given, I think, the harshest FIA penalty I've ever seen. 4 penalty points on the licence and a 15-place grid penalty. You know, deemed wholly at fault was the quote used by the FIA. Yet here we are, because he's got a bit of money. It's looking like he's going to take one of those seats, and frankly, it's not a good sign from Haas as well, who, bear in mind, are coming out of the Rich Energy saga already. Yeah. Not only has their pace taken a hit from that, but also their reputation in the paddock. You say, oh, you know what? Let's move away from one corrupt businessman to another one. That'll work.
Yeah.
I do feel that Haas's decision making has been, well, probably it's probably rivaling Ferrari's strategy decisions at the moment. It's not great. No. But that's one seat. The other seat is a lot hard to work out, and that's the thing. We were thinking someone like Perez or Hülkenberg could be an option for that seat, but then apparently they've booted out Magnussen and Grosjean as a result of financial reasons. At least, I mean that might just be Steiner handing Grosjean his P45 with a little cake on top.
But I think it might have been. I think Kira Megan shared this. I think she said something like Mazepin's paid 35 million towards that seat, and Grosjean or K-Mag couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford to pay the other seat or something like that. They couldn't conjure up the funds which Haas required from them to have that seat, the other seat or whatever.
Yeah,
something like that.
35 million sounds like a small amount for Formula One terms, especially for someone who's been rumoured to buy out the team. And also think from a political standpoint, we've got the Russian taking over an American team. I imagine that doesn't look particularly good from some angles.
Doesn't.
No, it doesn't at all. No. And you know, it's a strange one. But if we say that's factual, if we say that it is financial reasons, then we could be seeing another junior. Maybe that's what gives Ilott his chance to shine that car. I don't think they go with Schwartzman, because I think 2 Russians in the American team. that I think one is Haas's limit. I don't think they'll go for 2. Ilott, maybe there's talking about Mick Schumacher. I think Mick is locked down at Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, I was going to say
that Gio has re-signed, but I don't believe that. I'm not going to lie. I don't know where that's come from. I'll believe it if it happens, but I'm not sure on that. So I'm going to take a bit of a punt. I'm going to say Mazepin and Ilott in that Haas car, which could be explosive, but we'll have to wait and see. Especially given their clash back in F3 that I mentioned before.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say that as well. That would be just reigniting all rivalries, like we heard this week with Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. They're going to have Extreme E teams, so that's going to ignite that rivalry once again. So I can't wait for that. But yeah, I think Mazepin. I mean, I'll admit I didn't know a lot about. I didn't know about the stuff that you spoke about there with the incidences. I just heard he was like an average Joe kind of driver with a bit of money. Now, money talks in Formula 1, but are we surprised like this is happening? Because Formula 1 has always been about money. It's always been the case. That's how many drivers have got their seat. I think more of it is shone more than others, depending on the driver. So, for example, when Stroll got his seat at Williams, it was all in the media, like, oh, Stroll's bought his seat in, blah, blah, blah. It was pictured as hate. But then you switch it over to Lando Norris, who was seen as like this up-and-coming British driver who was a good driver. However, he did have a lot of money behind him because his dad's a billionaire, but nobody batted an eyelid at it. So I just think it's just how the media shows it, I would say, you know what I mean? But at the same, but obviously, this is different, by the way, because like you said, Mazepin's got a bit of a bad reputation. But like, I'm looking at it going, yeah, I'm frustrated that no one, that not there are drivers out there who deserve that seat and over Mazepin, but it's like, that's Formula One. We've been here before. We've been here again. If you've got money, more than likely you are going to get a seat. There's talk of a 2-year deal that has already been signed. We're just waiting for an announcement. Like I said, I don't know if something has been announced between now and the podcast being released. In terms of the other seat, I would have thought they would be pushing for a Perez or a Hulkenberg, another driver who brings experience, because one of the reasons why they did keep Grosjean on now was because of his feedback to the car, his feedback to the team, because of Haas's horrible season that they had last year. It was Grosjean's decision to revert back to the old setup, and Haas's results started to improve little by little. And despite him, like I said, having that reputation, his feedback was pretty good. And K-Mag was, of course, that young driver who was very, very quick. However, this is, Mazepin's probably not as quick as Kevin Magnussen, but then I would suggest, I would probably think Haas would tend to go with a driver who's got experience, and like we mentioned earlier, Perez brings some money, and I think he could be useful for a team like Haas, and not only him, Hulkenberg as well. But again, like they said, there Haas's reasons to letting K-Mag and Grosjean go was reasons for financial reasons and because of COVID. So I would imagine Perez's wage or Hulkenberg's wage wouldn't be cheap neither. And would they conjure up the funds to get that seat? I really don't know. So it just looks like, could they go for Schwartzman? Could they go for Eilert? I mean, there's talk of Eilert not doing a second year because he couldn't afford it in Formula 2. Another year in Formula 2 because he couldn't afford it. So they could take a punt on him. I really don't know. I'm going to have a punt and say Schwartzman. That's my punt. It could be anybody. Honest to God, it really could be anybody. It could be George Russell, for all we know.
It could be.
That's how crazy this transfer window has been. And I remember back in January when they announced, when Charles signed his deal, Max Verstappen signed his deal at their represented teams. I was like, oh, well, this silly season rumor that we expected for 21 or for 2020 into 21 is going to be rubbish. How wrong was I? I'm going to take a punt and say Schwartzman. And now, yes, 2 Russians in the same seat, but that could be lined up for Dimitri to take over the team. Have 2 Russians, a Russian owner that could set that up. That could even push Jean Haas to sell him up even more so. And Robert Schwartzman, he is a good driver. He's slacking a bit in Formula 2, but still, he's had some really good performances this season, and he brings a lot of Russian money as well, as does Mazepin. So I'm going to say Schwartzman, and I think that could, like I said, push Dimitri to buy the team full hand. And maybe we could have another Russian time too.
I was going to mention that. They could bring back the Russian time then. Yeah, definitely.